Your health, your way, your community. Make the change. Join the movement.
Hey, welcome. We've got Gary Wallman joining us today. Gary, I've checked out a bit of your stuff. I really like it. You actually got referred to us by a friend of HealMe, so very happy to have you on. For those that don't know you, can you just give us a little bit of a background about who you are and what you do?
Is that a question?
Yeah.
That's a question. Who I am and what I do. Such a good question. The first answer that pops in my mind is obviously the right answer, following trusting intuition. Who I am, as I see myself, as an archaeologist of the soul. And what do I mean by that? I mean by that I've been dedicated my whole life to devotion to motion, the body, the landscape, the performance, what the full self-expression can do through the body. Yet I see all of us, myself included, we're buried in our own landscapes. And so over my life, I've dedicated myself to freeing those layers of physical tension. Underneath that, the emotional stored energy, the self-talk, that keeps all these holding patterns in place for all of us. And then once that's freed up, the physical layer, the emotional layer, out come the gifts of creative expression. So how I see myself is that, someone who is here to free that fully expressive, speaking from the core in a vulnerable, easy for me to say, authentic way. It's very body-centered. Who I am and what I am is to free people to bring their message, their voice out into the world through the instrument of the body as they've dreamed possible. How's that for a short, long answer?
That's beautiful. Well done. You know, it's funny because at this point in time, we see a lot of people struggling. And one of the things that I see people failing to do is getting into their body. I think one of the things that they've let go of is becoming more embodied in their daily life and daily practice. So they tend to be a lot more scattered and not grounded. And I think finding things more difficult than perhaps necessary. So the topic of today, Gary, is that the issues are in the tissues. If you speak to anybody that's been in physical therapies for a decent amount of time, they'll tell you that the issues are in the tissues, because you mentioned before, underneath that, you got that emotional layer there. So do you just want to give us a little bit of your thoughts on that phrase? And also, let's just start there, because we'll get more into the embodied stuff. So what do you have to say about issues being
Well, I have to... Yeah, I love that expression, by the way. Did you come up with that, Tom?
No, that's old. I didn't come up with that.
It was between you two talking, you and Dave, and I heard that in your conversation. What are we going to call this subject? And it's really a perfect topic, and not just because the issue is in the tissue, in the physicality, in the viscerality of our expression, but it's also where we are, as I see it, bound, and yet bound to release in the body and the mind simultaneously. So the issue in the tissue for me is a very exciting phrase, because I like to speak in rhyme. And I find it actually even more effective when doing powerful work with people to be able to take well-meaning shifts in the self-talk and to phrase it in easy-to-remember short sentences that are rhyming. So issue, tissue, very powerful stuff. And from the beginning of my getting into this work, I'll be 70 in a month, since 20. I've been doing this work for 50 years. I've been watching everywhere, all around the world, we're all the same. It doesn't land up in the tissue. The issues we have, they don't start in the tissues unless you have an accident and you break into something and then it comes from that. But it's almost always, isn't it? The way that we hold the story, the older I get, the elder I get, the wiser I get, the more it's about the story we tell ourselves about whatever happened or whatever we imagine can happen or whatever we're fighting from happening again. And that issue becomes physical. In the realm of understanding metaphysics, and I've been doing transformational body therapy for 50 years and understanding that the way that this comes down from spirit is we may have an experience that we make a decision about in our mind, spiritual, mental, emotional, the neck, the main etheric center that has to do with decisions we made about that experience. For example, a good example would be this. Let's say you have parents. All of us have had parents alive at one time. Mine are deceased at this stage. But all parents, even the most well-meaning parents, the children get hurt, get wounded. Not because the parents wanted to or they were bad parents. It's part of growing up to rebel against, to have something to push up against, to have a sense of individuation from what happened before. So in my case, good to be transparent and personal. Let's see. So my mom and dad, they were very well-meaning and wonderful, wonderful parents. And in their own way, they gave me the best schooling, went to the best camps. I became a great athlete and scholar. However, they had an idea that they wanted me to fit. You see what I'm doing? That's right, in a certain box, exactly. And I couldn't fit whatever I tried. I was a champion springboard diver. I became a court jester. I was wild, and I couldn't fit into the boxes. And so I made a decision. Yes, indeed. I made a decision that in some ways I wasn't good enough. Many of us have had that decision. And that has also then become a physical in the tissue experience, because in many of us who believe I'm not good enough, I can't perform for my parents, can't fit into this role or that girlfriend or my wife or my sister, my lover, my dog, whatever you're attempting to please. And then this whole area, as I see it in the body, let's keep talking about embodiment here. The upper torso is the area where we fully receive inspiration. However, if we have a belief, as I did, as I'm still working it through, as many of us still do, that I'm not enough, I would be deliberately not breathing in enough, not receiving enough emotional support, financial support, whatever, even inspiration, because I have a decision that I'm not enough. But by stretching the tissues of the body while implanting new self-talk in rhyme at the same time, the issue unravels. And the words, for example, I fully receive, take a deep breath in, everybody, okay, what I most strongly desire, deserve, and decree. So that increases the widening in this area around the chest and heart. If we do that while the muscles are being stretched, implanting the self-talk, then the issue in the tissue transforms to a new story, a new glory. Am I making sense? Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Good. Matter of fact, that's a very important expression that I wanted to say. I didn't say it glibly, even though it sounded like I was saying it glibly. The more I, you, we, any one of us, with our tremendous wisdom, knowledge, intelligence that we've had in our specific specialty, can multi-sensorize it, speak so people can hear it, see it, feel it, taste it, smell it, touch it, whatever allows that new phrase, or it's safe for me to fully receive, I'm a nut, whatever it is, to match a physicality, a viscerality, then something magical happens. Then the issue is no longer in the tissue. We've transformed our relationship to our bodies, our relationships, our communication, our creativity, and our giving back to humanity. So what I was just saying is, it makes more sense. Everything makes more sense when we multi-sensorize a simple communication so it's not stuck up in the head. We reach as many of the senses as possible. So tell me what you're getting from what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, it's a matter of becoming a lot more self-aware as well. And what I'm interested in your opinion on is that it seems like when you said, if we've had parents that are slightly different to us, it gives us something to kind of push against, and it gives us a sense of who we are based on some of the challenges or the resistance that we might have in those relationships. And then when you said that when we are able to unravel some of those issues, we get to experience an unfurling and perhaps maybe a gift that wouldn't have been there had we not had the issue to be able to move through. So
well, exactly. When I was growing up, again, my parents had some very strong ideas about how they wanted me to fit into a certain mold. I could never fit into that mold. And when I didn't fit into that mold, they wondered, what did we do wrong? Our son, the court jester, how did you do this? He gave us the best schooling, this and that. And so I have now become, in the feeling that I was never heard by my parents, a presentation coach with a somatic focus, because it turned around. My parents actually kept the knowledge from me that my great-great-grandfather played clarinet for the Tsar in Russia, and his brother was an artist. I had no idea about this stuff till my early 30s, because my parents wanted to keep away from my consciousness that I would do anything other than being a thinking head. That's what they brought me up to be. And I'm so much more than that, as we all are. And so I'm now helping to free people from being buried inside their own landscape. The wound became a gift. Exactly.
Okay. And so when we're talking about, can you give a personal example, either for yourself or people that you've worked with, of
Sure.
what it really looks like for somebody to recognize an issue that is stored, and the process of actually becoming aware of it and then moving through it? Like, what does that look like for somebody to actually move through an issue and then for it to be released from the tissues?
It's a great question, as you always ask the great questions, Tom. And I knew sooner or later I would offer this particular ritual, this particular exercise I'm about to share with you all. And then if anyone here wishes to go through that personally or physically with the others on this call, I'm happy to do that, or another time. But this is what I consider to be the most powerful of all the different tools that have come through me over the years, that really comes down to one simple thing. If you take a look, you who are listening, you who are watching, you who are feeling, yes, you, what is it in you? Don't have to answer, but go living in this question for a minute. What is it in you that's holding back your full magnificence, your full expression, your full honoring of the gifts that may have been in your own ancestry, or you never even recognize it because you've been too busy taking care of the family or being a good home provider, whatever it might be, you've been too busy to really go into the depths. However, let's say you recognize, we're going to focus on this again, let's say you recognize that you've been holding back, let's say, ever since an event happened. Mom hit you, father ignored you, kids scoffed you, someone threw a rock in your face. It could be anything, right? But we all have our version of feeling rejected, of feeling that we have to pull back because we're not in our own way good enough to share our true magnificence and gifts. So picture that, whatever that is for you who are listening, okay? Now, here's the exercise. It's really simple and it's very powerful. I actually prefer doing it when I'm working on the body and then I free the tissues that are related to the condition of holding in, not being able to receive, or holding back, keeping the lower torso area tight, afraid to put the foot down. Let's just say it's up here because it's easy to see. The relationship to being able to fully receive, the relationship to feeling worthy, pulling back one's own gift. So let's say there's an incident you remember, doesn't matter what age, picture the incident. Here's the exercise. Shake out your hands with me. We can all do this together, whether you're doing it with me or not. I'm going to do it. And we're shaking out whatever you can. That's the beginning of releasing this condition that has had a hold over you, whatever it is. Arms, legs, whatever you can shake out without falling on the floor or breaking the computer. Just keep your attention focused on the screen because I want to keep our eye contact as much as possible. At least you'll see my eye contact. Good. All right. So that's the first step, just to move the energy, step one. Step two is now to address the people who have threatened you at an earlier age, where you, ever since that happened, I've never been able to fully express. So I may say, Mom, ever since that incident happened at age blah, 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 I've been holding back, not feeling like I'm good enough, and I'm tired of it. As I take this pain, you go like this, with your hand, as though it's an open chalice, go like this. I take this pain I've been carrying, this false persona, this pretending that I'm not good enough, this being in that way to fit into your movie of who I thought I was, that superficial persona that allowed me to feel a connection with you, but it's not my true essence. I take this pain I've been carrying all these years, all my relationships, all the ways I've been holding back society from myself. And this is the powerful part. Ready? Let's do this together. I'll say it first, then do it after me. I take this pain, I wad it up into an ugly ball. Just imagine that. Good, good. And I send it. I send it back to the source with strength. The whole body saying this, saying that. I send it back to the source. Your whole body getting into it. It's not just the words. It's the full emotionality, moving it through the system. I send it, this old pattern no longer serves, back to where it came. Okay. And then, reaching your arms up in the air, take a deep breath in. Fresh inspiration, filling the heart. Each full breath, sunrise, fresh start. Long exhale, picture waters falling, letting go the old, all the way through. And simply saying, or notice myself saying, because I'm modeling this exercise, I have just sent this past pattern of pulling back my gifts, blah, 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 somewhere else to play. Today, for me, is a new day. And then the most important part, hip, hip, hooray! I do that because the velocity of ridiculosity carries great momentum. So that's a very swift, may seem even a bit silly exercise. It's very powerful because it takes what was threatening one and turns into this quite fun ritual. Suddenly you've taken a stand of command in your land to what has been pulling you back all these years. You stood up to it, and it no longer is in your way. Then the gifts come out almost immediately and dramatically. Does that make sense, what I just said?
Yeah. I love what you said as well. It's not you said it's not like a mind thing. It's not just something you think, because it's in here. So if you do hold yourself back, do you ever see that, Gary? Do you ever see people think, oh, that's silly, or I'll feel silly doing that? And does that stop them from being able to release what's in the body? Is it really important to be able to get into that and to let it go and to not worry about what you look like, what you sound like, what people might think?
Again, a series of great questions. Yes, no. There's a way through that. The only way to get through a skid is through going with the skid rather than trying to avoid it. So it's very interesting. One time, I remember I was working with a world-famous speaker in New Zealand who I just had a feeling, I met him by Yellow Pages ad, I just had a sense he might appreciate coming to a session. He was going to be full of himself or open to growth. He was very open to growth. And when I had a chance to actually see him presenting his challenge where he felt held back, it was very interesting what happened. He was presenting to a room, but instead of speaking, he was shouting. You know how some people, they feel like to be heard, they have to do something strange with their... He was shouting. I had a chance to do a bit of a private session with him after. What are you shouting to that group of 100 people? Those poor people, they're interested in your hypnosis workshop. Why were you shouting at them? And I just paused. Having had a lot of psychodramatic training and knowing what was going to come next, he said, oh my God, I've been shouting at my father my whole life. He never listened to me. That's what I'm doing. No wonder people can't hear me. I'm shouting. And he began to cry. And there was a softening and a tenderness that came through. So the realization, at first it may seem very difficult. If someone says, oh, it's hard, it's silly. Another good story is, short story, another world-renowned public speaker. He was here in Australia. It was at the first National Speakers Association of Australia. I think it was their first international presenter. And there was a man, I can say his name, he's passed away, beautiful soul. Jack Hohen was his name. Very dignified man, tall, stately, statesman-like. And he, very similar to what you just asked me, had his opportunity to do what I do best, which is what are you ready to let go of that's keeping you from fully being authentic, engaging, impactful, effective with your audience. And he turned to this audience and said, you're my peers. You know, I could have a lot of people put me on a pedestal and I could fool them. And I could fool them with my age, my stage of life, my dignity, my worth. But you're my peers, you see right through me. And the thing I'm really afraid of, he said to me, is I don't want to look like a fool in front of others. I don't want to do that. And I've been a professional court jester all my life. That's the three-horned hat I'm drawing a picture of with my face there. So it wasn't a problem for me to give him my jester hat. And he put it on, and he began to act silly, but it didn't last for more than about a second. Then he began to cry. He began to cry. He said, he took the hat off. He said, it's not that I'm afraid of being silly. I've been afraid of being myself with you. If I could really be, tears down his face, authentic with you, I would just want to tell you how much I care. You've been with me all my career, how much you've meant to me, and how much you mean to me is really what I want to say. I want to get that across to all my audiences. And they came running up to him saying, I never felt you being so authentic. But he had to first face the place that was false, and then it was really something underneath that. It wasn't silliness. It was the fear of being just vulnerable and sensitive and tender and human that was underneath that. And he did get over it. But it took releasing, and it often does, the emotion that was holding the belief that he had to be a certain way in place. How does this make sense to you? I'm curious what you're picking up.
Well, it's, I think you're hitting on something that's so important to, I think, all of masculinity in this day and age, because there's a lot of indoctrination into holding back emotions and things. One of used to be my favorite comedian until he started being pro-cabal and agenda. But anyway, Bill Burr, he's got this bit where he says that if you want to know why guys drop dead out of nowhere at 50, it's from years of not being able to admit that a puppy's cute, or it's like, no, I'm not going to show any emotion. You just push it and you push it and you push it down. And then by the age of 50, you're just so built up that you can just, drop that out of nowhere from a heart attack. And what you've just said is that there's a lot of work to go through, and there can be a shedding of tears. There could be a convulsing in the body. There could be a lot of different ways. And sometimes we don't know how that will come out. But it sounds like from what you said that it is an important part of the process. And so I think that to me, you can say otherwise, but to me, Gary, that represents a softening. So if we think of those issues in the tissues as a hardening, which is somewhat masculine, then the softening is the feminine aspect, which I think is so important that with what we're seeing in the world today, that is embraced more.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about that? Am I on the right track, or?
You're on the right track, and I'm thinking about getting a bit creative here with you all, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go.
So what I'm thinking, I can do it with the hands. I think it's easy to do with the hands. It always comes down to weaving a new story, whether it's between the male side and the female side, the tender side and the assertive side, to renegotiate the way that we can communicate effectively. I find that it's really powerful to actually, whether it's on one hand, this is my left hand over here, there's a sense that my vulnerability is my strength. That's speaking from a place of honoring that female, nurturing, self-reflective, taking care of self side. But that's not enough. This one, the right side, the male, the traditionally male, the assertive. I was born in New York City, firstborn male, Jewish, all of this fiery energy, and yet I never felt at home in that. I felt like, I'm a bat out of hell. I can't turn off this fire. So I've been attracted all my life to more sensitive, gentle places to balance off this huge fieriness that I have. So imagine yourself having two sides that are in conflict. Let's call it the assertive side and the soft side. You said soft, so soft and hard. Or, you get my drift. Mm-hmm. And if there were a conversation, see if you can do this by yourself, because it's very powerful. Even better when you're having the body worked on, because there's more of a sense of sensations parading and pageanting through. But watch this. I want to have more of a voice. I'm the left side. And you, right side, you've been taking over. You've been domineering. You've been conquering. You've been pushing. You've been assertive. I'm tired of it. I feel like I need more of a place here. We're here together. We're attached to the same guy, but you're taking over all the time. I need you to soften a little bit. Allow me to show you my sensitivity, and then you can play more. Really? Well, I never told you, but I'm a bit tired of feeling like I have to be the dominant one. I don't like it at all. Tell you what, if I become a little bit more relaxed and playful, and you become a little bit more assertive, we could actually achieve even more. Yeah, and I'd enjoy living with you rather than feel like you're the hard ass. Okay, all right. Yeah, let's find a way to work together. So it's a very, I like to play with puppets. I'm doing this with the hands. If you in your own way can do that, on the one hand this, on the other hand that, this one needs this or this to be added, deleted, or changed to be more in harmony with you, and I can give you this in return. And then they move together, whether it's the hands touching or something, again, that's embodied, that takes the words out of your brain and physicalizes it, visceralizes it. So the problem, the challenge dissolves by somatizing it in this way, connecting the mind, the body, and the spirit. Now, how is that helpful to you in any way?
Yeah, that's good. It's a very simple way to be able to to work with it, because for a lot of people it's an abstract thing to try to contextualize. So that, I think that's good. And one of the things that you just said in there was to rewrite the story. And something that I've seen in your some of your videos, which I've been familiar with in other ways, and I'd love for you to expand on it. One of the simple things that I saw you present was that we could take the same words that we would normally have in our internal dialogue and rearrange them. And the example that you gave is a typical expression we all say. We say, I have to do this.
That's right.
We always say that. I have to go to the shops. I have to do the bills. I have to do this. I have to do that. And you said, instead of saying, I have to do this, you said, rephrase it, I have this to do. And therefore, it becomes a sacred thing. It becomes a gift. It becomes something that we could celebrate rather than, oh, I've got to do this. So could you just talk to us a bit about that, please, Gary, and also maybe some other examples?
Yes, exactly. How powerful is the use of well-intentioned and placed words? When we say, I have to do this, it adds a sense of urgency, of fear, of anger, of tremendous, extreme intensity of emotion. However, if you say, I have this to do, it shifts the focus from being that urgency to having it, which puts us in a place of being able to be more the witness, so we can move it up and down and all around. I want to play with the words here for a bit, because not just the changing the order of the words, but actually the use of words and gestures themselves. I find that most humans, even some of the best speakers and presenters, some of whom I've met or coached and worked with, they have a wonderful storytelling ability, but there's something missing. And that's often, I do this a lot with my hands because I just like using my hands, and I feel it helps me connect better with you. So watch this. If you who are watching, listening, feeling, were to go into what 3 key words would match in sensation the key strengths you have before you even open your mouth, whether it's in your specialty, at home, your creative gifts, your compassion, your humanitarian bent, whatever that might be, what would those 3 key words be that match a gesture at the same time, that you can begin to include the gesture more so you make more sense even when you're not using words? So, for example, I use these 3 keywords quite a lot because I practice this exercise. So I would say, I'm creative, and I'll do something like this with my hands. I'm playful, and I'll do something like that with my hands. And I'm transformational. So it looks like what I'm saying. You see what I'm saying? So when you can take the words and not just play with the order of the words that you're phrasing, but also have the words made into pictures from what you're saying. One, it tends to slow you down. So if you're giving a lot of content and information, you're more in your body when you're showing pictures of what you're saying, right? And so you make more sense, and you reach people through more of the senses. So I slightly twisted your question around from saying it's not just the order of the words, but it's also how you visceralize, physicalize, make pictures of the words, particularly with your hands, fingers, and your whole body, so you're able to have people understand what you're saying from the way your body moves and takes a stand. It's a whole different way of communicating with the body is the chief instrument of communication. Not just the voice, not just the mental words. That's the truth, speaking from the full expression of the soul coming through the body. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm reminded of when I was a teenager and became very self-conscious. A lot of trauma and things to work through, but when I used to walk, I wouldn't even swing my arms at some points. I'd be so like rigid. And you see it a lot when people talk. Sometimes people, when they're either over analytical of what they're saying or they fear speaking their truth, there's almost no gesture in the body, right? So you can see straight away where the trauma is, because they're not like you're everywhere. You're very expressive with your body, but a lot of people are quite, it's either cultural or it's something where they've just got to be like, no, I sit with my hands like this, and that's where they stay. And it seems like it puts a bit of a rift there. So I've got two questions. One is that how much of this, and if you see it as well, do you feel is blocking communication in people and full self-expression? And the second part is that you just said that you use your hands a lot. And the hands, in my experience of working in holistic health, are one of there's a lot of intuition that's involved in the hands and the fingertips. They're one of the most sensitive parts of the body, not just to touch, but to feel things energetically.
Yeah.
So can you just talk a bit about that importance of body communication and body expression in your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you were asking me that, I was going to take us down a bit of a road as well with speaking with the body, speaking with the hands, taking a stand without even having to say words at all. It's very interesting how we can do this. One of the things I find gets people almost immediately out of that, what I can consider to be that frozenness, and many of us, myself too, at times, I feel that stiffness. It often is precipitated before it comes in the tissue. It's at first an issue. Well conceived, that thought. So if we look at what I would call, this is an exercise that I've developed that takes people out of that immediately. And we can do that together, or you can imagine it happening. Okay, so let's say you're going to say the words, it's easy for me to reach you with my message, but you say it stiffly, like you're a wooden Indian. So I'm going to pretend and exaggerate it. You can do it with me. I won't necessarily see or hear anyone else, but you can, just to feel it, make yourself really tight like a wooden Indian. Say the words lockjaw, or say for me to reach you with my message. Of course, it doesn't feel believable because you're exaggerating the ridiculosity of it. Then the opposite, wild and free, the same thing as though nothing matters, right? It's easy for me to reach you with my massage, just not even thinking about it. Then tighter, looser, and tightest. Those are real tears. And then the best of both. Because it's not the exaggeration, that silliness you saw me just doing, that's the answer. It's by going the outside of one's comfort zone in both directions that then one frees one, and then what's the best of both? There's something powerful about taking a stance. There's something fun about going past what one's used to. So the best of both might be something like, it's safe for me, yes, to reach you with my message. So I was combining some of the strength, some of the exaggeration, some of the pulling in. So that's a very simple exercise. It's called the double extreme technique. Exaggerating in whatever direction you're already going, then the opposite. Take it further in both directions, take it furthest, and then what would the best of the both be? And you're out of your mind by now because you've already gone way past the comfort zone, and out comes the natural, authentic self. Again, I'm often answering your questions, I realize, by giving you examples and stories rather than directly head-on with the questions. If there's more question to your question, please speak on.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love it. It's a really good way I'm going to allow the audience to ask some questions. I've got one more for you, and then we'll go to some audience questions. So I've got a big interest in this. Like the expressiveness is one thing. So when I see a lot of these issues, so what I tend to class them as is a repression. If we've got issues that are in the tissues, then it's a repressed something, trauma, usually some kind of emotion, whatever. So then the opposite to me of repression is expression. They're like, to me, they're total opposite ends of a spectrum. So what other ways do you feel that people can express more freely? Like for you, you've got this great expressiveness through your physicality, and was it work that you got in? Was that a profession for you, being like a jester and being an entertainer? Was that like a...
No, I wanted to be a child psychiatrist when I was 20 years old. I didn't get into medical schools, and then when I moved from East Coast of the U.S. to the West Coast, I fell into all of these body therapies and expressive arts and became a court jester. I didn't even try. Out came all this creativity when I received a lot of this very deep tissue body therapy, Reiki work, bioenergetics, that whole polarity, all of that. Out came this freed upness of painting, songs, writings, poetry, the ability to speak. And then that was when I made a decision. It was my mid-20s that we all must be like this. We must all be buried within our own landscapes in our own unique way. I wasn't always this way. I was a tight kind of a repressed, performer, producer, good kid. I was a good student. I did get the award in high school for the student that had the best combination of athletics and academics, and that's become my career. But no, I was very uptight. I was shaking like a leaf on stage. I had to train myself to do what I'm teaching because I was terrified that I was not going to be accepted from my mom and dad, from my mom. So no, these things I feel it's like stepping up and allowing the vulnerability, the perfect imperfection to be the fuel that ignites moving forward with phrases like this, Tom. People are more eager to hear what I have to say than I'm nervous to say it, than I'm afraid to say. So phrases like that, when it's not just a mental phrase, but then the feeling of I'm going to speak out anyway. I'm going to use a puppet anyway. I'm going to do this in song instead of just read it from a script and see what happens. And then people get the best expression of themselves, not by trying, but by willing to go into the unknown. That's really what it is. It's only about that. By willing to go into the unknown and trusting, now when I speak, I don't know what I'm going to say, but I've said enough things enough times that I know I could be cutting and pasting and it's going to come out right. It's that developing practice, not getting it right, but practicing it, living in the question, enough, that then these abilities to do whatever you do best, every one of you listening, in your specialty, with your friends, your work, your holistics, your family, to do that in a way that allows you to feel, oh my goodness, my perfect imperfection is showing through, and people love you even more for it. Is that making sense? Again, I feel like I'm going through left field to answer your question.
So are you talking more than about trust? So for you, it's about trust, as in that ability to just suspend that fear of anything. Is it trust? Is that kind of where it comes down to?
Give me a moment here. As I'm speaking to you, I'm wearing hearing aids and my right hearing aid battery just stopped working. So I trust that you're still going to hear me while I change my hearing aid battery on the right side. No, I don't think it's about trust. I don't think it matters whether you trust. I think it matters that you leap. You see that expression in back of me? Can you read that?
No.
Leap. It says, leap and the net will appear. It's a Zen saying. I've done enough leaping in my life from one continent to another, from one place of living to another, from one style of doing work with another, except for the body therapy all these years, that it became familiar. So it's not about trust, but the new familiar came by making so many leaps into unknown territory that I realized every time I did it, I would be met with endless opportunities and gifts and reward, because I guess you could say I trusted the unknown, but I wasn't thinking about trust. I was just thinking that when I leap, the gifts come, because I kept happening over and over and over. So I got used to a new familiar, or a new story, as it were. It is really about trust. It's just other words, another way of saying it. Yes.
Cool. Love it.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite expressions too, and especially in this day and age where people are finding that the old system is not serving them, but they're trying to like cling on to it instead of just moving with the flow of where the new world's emerging. And it's that whole thing of, if you just leap, and it's, you know, it'll be there. The opportunities will be there. The money will be there. It'll happen if you're willing to take that leap. I really love that. It's a big part of how I live my life as well. So got a question here from the audience. Got a few here. First one is,
excellent.
Many people are having to reevaluate their life, job, goals, friendship groups, etc. What exercises do you have to help them from releasing the old and inspiring them toward their future?
Sit up tall in your spine, if you can. As you exhale, let out a sigh of relief down through the base of your spine, a sound of deepening, of relief, of release. And as you do, focus on whatever it is that you've been holding on to that's no longer serving you, like sand in an hourglass. See it passing through, sending it down to the center of the molten earth, the sound of deepening. Breathing in, picture sunrise lifting in the morning sky. Each inhale, the sunrise, filling the heart. Fresh inspiration. Picture, as you do, the most beautiful colors and whatever it is that comes across that field. So here is a practice. You don't have to do anything. You just have to breathe. It's a visualization practice. Water's falling as I exhale long. Sunrise lifting as I inhale strong. Letting go as I exhale old air, old ways, old programs, old familiar stories, patterns, ways of thinking, speaking, and taking action. Breathing in, strong, full, clear. Now, what comes up on your screen? You see, it's not about trying to figure it out. When you're in this practice of letting go, dark, faded, heavy colors, water's falling, see that image down the spine? And as you breathe in, sunrise lifting, the most beautiful colors. Each inhale, the sunrise, filling the heart. Each full breath, fresh start. You will see in the blank canvas of the theater of your mind, you will see something. You'll see either colors, shapes, forms, textures, words. Often I see words written in the neon screen in my mind. I ask someone a question, I see the answer written like I'm watching it, and they say it. That's exactly what I was seeing. So instead of looking for, do I go to this job, or may go to a new career, or move over here, or blah, 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 watch in the infinite creativity that you have what comes to you without trying to fix it into form. Chagall, one of the most prolific artists of our time, who's passed away now, a French artist, was known for his joyful colors, his biblical and symbolic imagery, amazing gifts of wisdom that came through his paintings. And he was interviewed, one of my mentors, about how do you create these amazing shapes and forms that look even more like these biblical figures with such wisdom. How do you do this? And you know what his answer was?
No.
His answer was, I don't think about the form. I allow the feeling, the texture, the color to become the shape. The shape becomes the image becomes the telling, I'm saying in my words, becomes compelling. So instead of trying to figure out what to do next, letting go, long exhales, releasing the pressure, breathing in, see what appears in the movie screen of your mind, and I bet that you have some repetitive colors, shapes, forms. As you start recording those, you may find, oh, red, warm climate, or pictures of trombones, or gee, time to get back into music, pictures of books. It'll start coming as though you're dreaming, but you're dreaming awake. So it's a very powerful exercise. I actually just made that up on the spot. I've been doing similar exercises my whole life, but that one seems to make it a very condensed practice. You can practice it anytime. Very simple. Yeah, you can do that too.
Simplicity is great. And the next question is actually, hopefully you got a simple answer to that, is do you have a morning routine that helps you start each day? If so, what is it?
Well, I do, and it's a bit of a story that comes with it. I've moved off grid, and I'm living in a caravan. I'm living in an area here north of Melbourne where there's kangaroos everywhere. And every morning, what I like to do every morning, whether I'm inside or out, it's even nice to do it outside, I do my morning movement and breath coordinated exercise with affirmations and keywords and colors that match. I've got it down to a science. And yeah, I think it is a very powerful thing. And so I do this every morning. The thing that I wanted to tell you was I've been here about 3 months. And one day I was doing my morning exercises, moving with the breath, movement, intention, keyword, and color all matching up. And I felt something over here to my left. I looked over. Oh my God. There were about 20 kangaroos all lined up horizontally, watching me like I was an animal in their zoo on their land doing these funny exercises. I do that every morning. And when I do that every morning, let me take a shower, I'm so much more able, my circuits are open. You know, it combines movement in horizontal, vertical directions. I'm happy to show those of you here who want to dive deeper with me some of these exercises. This is not probably the time to go into much more depth about it, but they all have the same procedure. Intention leads the way, then breath and movement are synchronized with the keyword and color, and often that then embodies in my landscape a viscerality, a connectiveness that moves me through the day in a very receptive way. Not such a short answer, but perhaps a simple one.
Yeah, it is a simple one, and I quite like that. How long does that usually take?
12 minutes.
Yeah, nice. So that's something really anyone can have available to them, right?
And it's essential. It's essential for every one of us to have a physical or somatic practice, because until we do, we get to be, me too, talking heads. And the whole idea of connecting spirit, mental, emotional, and physical together to line them all up is so that our thinking is clearer, our speaking is clearer, and our actions are clearer. And it's good to take breaks during the day to do a bit of a stretch, not just a Tai Chi stretch, but to actually get into the zone so that what you think, what you say, what you do are integrous. And then people get that. They get that in a millisecond. It's good to take these mini breaks throughout the day to come back to that place. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you heard the expression that we should all meditate for 20 minutes a day? And if we don't have enough time to meditate for 20 minutes a day, then we should meditate for an hour each day.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. Yeah.
Very similar to, what you just said. So important to have a somatic practice so that you can, become more embodied. It's so important. It's, to me, as I said at the start, I just think it's one of those elements that a lot of people are missing. They're getting very frantic in their mental, emotional states because of what's happening in the world. And it's almost like they're running from something metaphorically, but they're not in their body to do it.
Exactly. Now, I'm going to refer now to something that you asked me earlier, Tom. You were saying something about what else can you tell us about shifting the order of words. And so there's something to that I think we should touch upon here, which is when we talk about the movement patterns, and the movement patterns we were talking about earlier, but we were saying, I have it to do, or I have to do it. We can do the same thing in our thinking patterns by shifting how we move forward in the day. So instead of saying, oh, I'm doing better every day, or every day I do my meditation, no. Let's change it to this, moment to moment. Whoever can think about a whole day at a time? All we have are moments. So forget about doing it better every day and being in your head about what I'm going to do tomorrow and this and that and all these things and COVID this and lockdown that. No. In this moment, I choose to be in my body. In this moment, I can practice all the things that allow me to move forward in a good way. I don't have to get out of this moment, and that again brings us to a place of being centered, so our thinking, our speaking and our actions are all aligned up. So I wanted to comment about that alignment.
Love it. Thank you. That's a big thing. We actually don't have much time left. Dave, is there anything that you wanted to add or ask?
Well, for anyone that wants to dive deeper, I'm happy to connect more with people here, whether it's through this forum, people can connect through me by writing to me. I have all these exercises actually written down. I've got them as diagrams. I'm happy to show you directly on one-on-one, or we do a small class at some point. I welcome being in engagement with all of you here. I've met some wonderful people in the HealMe community, and both in giving and receiving. I'm happy to continue this dialogue in whatever shape or form sees fit. It's a wonderful community. I feel honored to be a part of it. As we replace the old systems that are falling apart with systems like this, I want to be as fully available to you and you to me to build this better world. And it's just one moment at a time. Some of you may have questions about some of the exercise I took you through. And if you wanted to go deeper personally, give me a call or contact me, and I can take you through that so you can personalize that and have that for yourself at home. Because I realize I give about 5 to 10 different rituals or exercises. They'll make more sense when you practice, and I would feel honored to have that opportunity to meet you in that way as well.
Yeah, we would
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, it's a big part of it. It's something that I think it's such a blessing to have as part of the HealMe platform, because it's so multifaceted. It's such an important part. So thank you for that.
Thank you,
Dave,
Tom.
did you want to bring anything up before we wrap up?
I was just going to basically touch on that. Is there a way that people can contact you and go through personally? A lot of people would probably feel comfortable doing one-on-one, but obviously you're in the country in Victoria, so
Sure.
can they do a Zoom call with you or something like that?
Yeah, well, you can reach me through my websites, which are my name, GaryWollman.com, and the spelling should be in front of you there. There, you can see the spelling. The other is mypresentationdoctor, spelled out, .com. That's got a lot of videos, a lot of what we've done here today. There's like hundreds of videos there. I have a Facebook page too called My Presentation Doctor. I don't use Facebook much anymore, but that's another way. And yeah, I'm happy to offer a complimentary session to each of the people here, 20 minutes or so, to actually take you with a Zoom session so you can record it and have the result you can take home and actually practice later. That would be very powerful. So you can reach me, Gary Wollman at protonmail.com would be good. That's another way to reach me. And of course, I have a phone number. You can find all that through the websites or by connecting through Tom or Dave. Yeah.
Gary, that's an amazing offer to put out to the community. And what I'd love to sort of reiterate to the rest of the community is that's more of what we're trying to establish here. And people need to personally think about what they've got to offer and to how to help get us to that area in the world that we want to be. And so, the more people that think that way, it will come back around. We've got to get out of this thinking that you have to trade in this way or you have to do it in this way. And we have to start thinking about, bringing our skills forward, whatever that is, and just helping. And just because we want to help, and then, just by being open to doing that, then good things will come back around. So, we're in this world that, is very much you pay, I give, that type of thing, but opening it up and having different relationships and thinking about what you've got to offer the community is really powerful.
Awesome.
It's an honor.
Look, that was a great call.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gary. So, and I totally agree.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Second what Dave said, not only appreciate your experience and what you bring, but your willingness to share. And that's a beautiful thing. So thank you again.
Most welcome.
I'm sure we'll chat again anyway. There's more to talk about.
Is there more?
There's more to talk about. I'm sure we'll talk.
We just started. Again. This is where it all begins. That's how I like to finish all my sessions. This is how it all begins.
Love it.
All right.
Thanks everyone for joining. Catch you next time.